Ladies and gentlemen, this is Laser Haas. I'm the whistleblower, former against Wall Street fraud, Goldman Sachs, Bain Capital, Mattel, Thomas Lee Partners, and their lawyers, Sullivan and Cromwell in New York, Morris Nichols Arson Delaware, Morris Nichols Arson Tunnel, M&AT in Wilmington, Delaware, and Paul Roy Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox, now gone. Dreyer LLP, now gone. Epstein, Becker, and Green, they're there, but I got him booted out. Traub booted out. Paul Roy Traub is the brown bag king in New York. Mitt Romney, Goldman Sachs, Bain Capital, Mattel, bagman. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at videos, and give me here, I was doing them shaky before. Hold on here, let me get this. Yeah, you guys won't believe me, but there's a solid chance that meeting with Mitt Romney and Donald Trump, you see him smiling, everything's okay. That's because after that meeting, Donald Trump gave Mitt Romney the nomination of Jay Clayton as partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, whose wife, Gretchen, was a partner at Goldman Sachs. Sullivan and Cromwell represents Goldman Sachs in New York Supreme Court, and in the case of eToys versus Goldman Sachs for IPO fraud. Also at Goldman Sachs, Sullivan and Cromwell law firm was Stephen Piken, who's a revolving door federal agent, goes back to Sullivan and Cromwell to get their quid pro quo, getting away with stuff. And you're going to have to excuse me here. I'm going to keep moving up and down. And Stephen Piken is buddies with Chief Judge Combe Connolly of Wilmington, Delaware. We'll show you his picture here in a minute. The guy should be in jail. He lied under oath to the Senate Judiciary Questionnaire. He's had the Department of Justice and the FBI threaten me to take down my websites about him so he could get to be a judge. I sued Trump to block him and Jay Clayton, and what happened was the clerk blocked my thing from going in the record. This is to show you that Citadel was involved in eToys. This was given to me by the Apes. The Ape Nation is the heavy investors in GameStop, which again is a corruption thing. Now let me list to you, and I guess the best way to do it is by picture here. Let me list to you, here we go. That's the best way to do it. This is Combe Connolly, right here in the picture with the red circle, Morris Nichols Arson Tunnel. Combe Connolly was my attorney. I was the CEO, court appointed by eToys judge, bankruptcy judge Mary App Walworth. Now, Combe Connolly's law firm, hold me here, I'm not good with this, I'm starting to learn. Morris Nichols Arson Tunnel, M&AT.com, a firm that took down Howard Hughes, by the way, because M&AT.com partner Franklin William Gay, Bill Gay, was a Summa Corporation register attorney for Howard Hughes. And Bill Gay's brother-in-law, Dr. Thane, was the doping agent and pled guilty to that. And the truth is Howard Hughes died, we think, in Acapulco. The people were going to bring the boat out, got scared. But the key point of that, Franklin William Bill Gay's son, Bob Gay, was a partner for over a decade with Mitt Romney since he formed Bain Capital. And Bob Gay ran when I started getting the evidence together in 2004 and 2005 that forced M&AT, Morris Nichols Arson Tunnel, to confess that they concealed their relationship with Goldman Sachs. See, I hired M&AT as my attorney and the Delaware Bankruptcy Court attorney of eToys against Goldman Sachs and Bain Capital, because we were selling eToys assets to Bain Capital KB purportedly as the highest bidder, but that got quashed by the criminal conspiracy I'm going to point to you about, that was done to constantly steal money from the entire toy industry so that they could launder it into owning Toys R Us by gutting the entire Major retail toy industry, and I'm talking KB, Zany Brainy, FAO Schwartz, Baby is R Us, Jumbo Sports, Stage Stores, PMA Kids, Parent Company, E-Toys, KB, and Toys R Us. By doing that monopoly that they acquired by racketeering fraud, bankruptcy fraud, stock fraud, every type of fraud you can think of, including stockholder fraud, SEC fraud, antitrust fraud, U.S. trustee fraud, conflict of interest fraud, federal corruption of Combe Connolly, Stephen Peiken, Jay Clayton, and others. All this was done so that they could destroy the entire retail toy industry and make it wind up where you could only buy most of that stuff from Amazon. This, why Mattel was part of it, because Thomas Lee, the guy that just committed suicide of Thomas Lee Partners, was the consigliere of Mattel. And Thomas Lee's buddy, right there, Paul Roy Traub, was partners with Mark Dreyer doing 20 years in prison, Tom Petters doing 50 years in prison, Ed O'Kuhn doing 100 years, Alan Stafford doing 110, Madoff doing 125,000. Kmart, Enron, Levitz, E-Toys, KB Toys, you name it, Paul Traub's got his hands in it. He's a brown bag king in New York and brags that he can snap his fingers and have anybody done in anytime he wants, right? So let me go further on our pictures here and giving you an idea. Again, I've told the Department of Justice to stop the fraud and cover-ups. You know, that article never got printed because the report it was going to do it got shut down, which happens all the time. Jay Clayton belongs in jail. Mitt Romney belongs in jail. He's going to run for president again. In 2012, I got Matt Taibbi to do the Rolling Stone cover story. I was the source for Matt Taibbi, prompting him to do the story. Gave him the information again. Mitt Romney owns Stage Stores. Jack Bush, Michael Glazer were his executive assistants, and Michael Glazer became the CEO. Jack Bush of Dallas, Texas. Romney and the Bushes are distant cousins that somebody pointed out to me. That's immaterial. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're lefty, right, independent, gay, straight, black, green, a foreign national. By the way, Mitt Romney's dad was born in Mexico. When he ran for president, nobody said anything about all this where's your birth certificate stuff. McCain was born out of the country. Nobody said anything about that. But if you're not white, they find out bullshit things because they couldn't turn around and nail Obama. Obama is the cleanest president that we've ever had in the last 40 years. He didn't get anybody indicted left and right. Romney is an organized criminal racketeer and belongs in jail. So Greed and Debt is a true story about Mitt Romney and Bain Capital. I'm the whistleblower in the KB bankruptcy case, where Michael Glazer, my counterpart, I was CEO of E-Toys. They offered me a bribe, M&AT, as debtor's counsel, that I hired to represent us and fight against Mattel, Stage Stores, Mitt Romney, Paul Traub, Barry Gold, basically also against Combe Connolly, but, he's partners of the M&AT law firm. I didn't find that out for years later. Goldman Sachs, Citadel, you name it. Everybody is doing fraud. M&AT has their hands in them, but lied under oath. Now, I got M&AT in 2005 to confess it lied under oath about Goldman Sachs. And that was easy to do. It was a typo, is how I found it. You won't believe it. Pacer went online, where the government took it away from the call-in racer system to get court files, where the clerks controlled what you could see and couldn't, to Pacer, Public Access Court Electronic Records.gov. Now, they've locked me out too. Daily Cause has locked me out. Democrat Underground has locked me out. Facebook has locked me out. They steal billions. How much money does it take for somebody, executive somewhere, a golf trip here, a girl over the weekend? I mean, that's how we got rid of Elliot Spitzer. Elliot Spitzer was getting too big for his britches. So he visited the same people, the same escort houses. Mark Dreyer and Paul Traub had others, and probably Epstein too. I don't have no connection with that, but I want to put it beyond them. Anyway, the point is that Greed and Debt points out the Stage Stores fraud, where the judge over the Michael Milken case allowed Romney to keep the hundreds of $1 millions he got from Milken to formulate stage stores. And we don't know if that ever got paid back. Those records are long gone. The thing about it is that Judge Pollock, the judge presiding over Milken's case, and I got Ty Abbey to put this into his Greed and Debt, a true story about Mitt Romney, 2012 cover story of Rolling Stone, because Boston Globe also had it. They corroborated it. And in so doing, Judge Pollock's wife was partners with Mitt Romney at the stores that he was acquiring. So this is how you hide the quid pro quo. They don't outright hand you a bagman bribe anymore. They come up with sophisticated ways. And if they can't do it here in the country, they go to Aruba or some island nation somewhere where we don't have an extradited treaty. A lot of times people went down to meet Traub in Aruba, in my case, that represented me, made a deal with them, come back and backstab me. Anyway, the point is that Michael Glazer worked under Romney with Jack Bush at stage stores that filed bankruptcy in mid-2000. Barry Gold was their secretary executive assistant, who was also secret partners with Paul Traub in many endeavors, and also got paid by Paul Traub's law firm, Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox, which I got shut down, by the way, after he confessed being deceitful and intentional perjury, leaving intentional lies before the court. But they had an ace in the hole, Combe Connolly. Combe Connolly was an M&AT partner, so when I was asking the U.S. Attorney Combe Connolly to investigate and prosecute the case with the confessions I had, I was asking him to investigate himself. I was asking Frank Nitti, sorry about that light going out there, I didn't touch the screen for a while. I was asking Frank Nitti, in essence, to prosecute Capone, and they're laughing their ass off at me. So anyway, Michael Glazer is also the CEO of KB. M&AT is representing Bain Capital of $83 million fraud in the KB case, that Michael Glazer accepted his bribe, and since I had him caught, he confessed that he took $18 million for himself as executive compensation, and the other guys got some millions too that were working with him. And then he filed bankruptcy. Now, you know good and damn well that you and I can't start a company, file bankruptcy, and keep $100 million. It's just not going to happen. But we don't own the U.S. Attorney. We haven't made our U.S. Attorney, crony, corrupt Combe Connolly into a federal judge. We haven't arranged for our attorneys at Sullivan and Cromwell of Jay Clayton and Stephen Piken to run the SEC and block me for 4 years, right? You know, that's just the truth of the matter. So anyway, now let's go up here and look at more. Again, that's Combe Connolly. You see there, he corrected the spelling before. He had an error in there. His kids did it. Honorable Judge Combe F. Connolly, Wilmington, Delaware, divorced, father of 4, district judge. Oh, that's the first time I've seen that. Before they said that he was father of 11 or something like that, I guess trying to get me in a lie. And his wife actually threatened me, and had a friend of theirs, an FBI agent, threaten me out here in California. Combe Connolly's assistant U.S. attorney was Ellen Slights. Her husband is a judge at the Chancery Court in Delaware. She had FBI agent Scott Duffy in Wilmington, Delaware, call me up. I've got the emails, the record of the phone numbers, and threaten me if I don't take down my websites naming Ellen Slights, Combe Connolly, and all the other people, that they were going to put me in jail because I had a felony record from 45 years ago. And under the 3 strike laws, they could lock me up and throw away the key. And I sent them an email. I'm glad to show any authority or anybody that I believe will legally use it properly to go F themselves. And I mean to the Department of Justice. I told them to go F themselves. Anyway, giving up's not an option for me. They kidnapped my daughter in 2004. My son was supposed to be next. There's 24 people dead in this case. Jack Wheeler, the Vietnam Memorial, worked for Bush 1, Bush 2, Reagan. Was a West Point man, Mothers Against Drunk Driving executive. He was found dead in a dump, and I got videotaped to prove he was in Combe Connolly's office building the day he wound up in the dump. And they ransacked his house, but his wife said there was nothing missing because she didn't know about my file that was given to Jack Wheeler, right? And they keep trying to bury that. Every time I talk to a cold case person, that guy gets removed. Okay, here's details again. Goldman Sachs, Bain Capital, Combe Connolly, That's his resume down there, and I'll show you that in a minute. Again, they laundered the money and got in Toys R Us. Paul Traub's partners with Mark Dreyer there. That's because I made him close Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox. We proved that the Secretary of State of New York had revoked Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox. And that meant every case that he testified falsely in, that he was of good standing as a firm in New York, it was lying and his money was rescindable. And Paul Traub was controller, and I'll show you that in a little bit, of Tom Petter's Ponzi. All right? Now, how does a guy be partners with Mark Dreyer, 20 years in prison, and control partner Tom Petter's 50 years in prison, who also had Larry Rezovic, the guy that I believe had my daughter kidnapped in 2004 on my birthday, because I was sharing an office in another company that I saved from bankruptcy called Bankruptcy Shoe Liquidators. And Larry Rezovic was in witness protection at the time. It's public record. You can look it up. So when he got caught in Tom Petter's Ponzi, he confessed laundering $12 billion. Yet the U.S. attorneys in Minnesota say it was only $3.7 billion because they want you to focus all your concentration on Bernie Madoff, which there's a series out now, and I'm talking to those guys, but they're not interested, and I don't blame them. You know, in Madoff's case, only the Madoffs are dead. The sons are dead that ran to tell the dad, to federal agents when Paul Traub pushed them to. Mark Madoff committed suicide. The other one died of cancer. A lot of people die of suicide and cancer in my cases. And let's go to another picture here. Keep moving the story along. What's this one here? Gary Gensler. You know, he wasn't recently at Goldman Sachs, but the fact of the matter is the SEC is embarrassed because Jay Clayton, again, was a Sullivan and Cromwell law firm partner whose wife was 20 years, Gretchen Clayton, 20-year partner at Goldman Sachs in the very merger and acquisition division that defrauded eToys and Mattel for $5 billion. When that happened, M&AT, Delaware law firm involved in the fraud, and let me get you that picture here. I'll show you where M&AT was a partner in it. I got to scan up here a little bit and find that picture that shows the SEC record of M&AT admitting that it's doing the filing, which was Mattel, Bain Capital, Thomas Lee Partners, and I believe that's why he was suicided this week. By the way, this is a good point. This is the Deputy Director, Lawrence A. Friedman, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, number 3 from the top under Ashcroft, who emails me and tells me, "You most certainly have our attention and my personal commitment that we will address it in every case that action is required. Please understand, however, that like any prosecutor, we must exercise appropriate discretion in carrying out our responsibilities. While sometimes in a particular case that may not seem unjust, it is done with perspective to all matters we handle." You know what that sounds like? Eric Holder, too big to jail, too big to fail, we can't arrest him. Anyway, that was sent, if you pay attention to the timestamp, the 24th, 25th of February, which happened to be 10 days after Paul Traub, the United States trustee, Assistant U.S. Trustee Frank Perch, put forth a motion to disgorge and disqualify Paul Traub for $1.69 million for deliberately, intentionally lying under oath, and it's called a motion to disgorge Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox, the now defunct law firm, for $1.69 million. In paragraph 18, Assistant United States Trustee Frank Perch capitulates that Traub confessed intentionally leaving lies to stand before the court because they thought the case was closed. Now, this is 2005, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't close until 2015. But it was 4 years after M&AT, me, the CEO, didn't give me anything about it, put forth with Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox, Paul Traub, who again was Stage Store's attorney, but also Mattel attorney, also Bain Capital's attorney, Wells Fargo attorney, and partners with Barry Gold, working under Barry Gold at Stage Stores. Again, it's incestuous and systemic, and any first-year failing lawsuit could prosecute this for 10 years and claw back billions of dollars. But you got the FBI, DOJ, SEC, Antitrust Division all embarrassed about it, so they want it buried and go away. But anyway, So he concluded that Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox lies under oath were deliberate rather than inadvertent. And it's a fraud on the court. And fraud on the court, there's no statute of limitations. But Frank Perch was gone from the U.S. Trustee's office the next day. And that's Colm Connolly, partners of Morris Nichols Austin Tunnel. This is a good law professor. Lynn Lopucky wrote a book, Courting Failure, How Competition for Big Cases is Corrupting the Bankruptcy Courts. Senator Cornyn actually wrote a paper, They Owe Us, right? Oh, wait, we got to go right here. These are the people dead in my case. Robert Auer, Sazoff tried to assassinate Robert Auer. Shortner, after Abramoff got out, Johann Hammerski from Alaska offered Albert a bribe, and I got witnesses to that. And when Albert turned it down, he said, people like you usually wake up dead. Albert killed assassin Sazoff right after Abramoff got out because Johann Hammerski bragged that he was partners with Abramoff before he went to jail. And then Albert woke up dead. Harry A. is the guy in Wilmington, Delaware, with John M. and others that helped me get to Jack Wheeler, who, even though he was with 3 presidents, a West Point man, handling the Vietnam Memorial, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, he was also an SEC top-level prosecutor. That's what I needed him for. State policeman who turned political in Delaware. Marty Lackner's the brother of James Lackner. That's Minnesota Assistant United States Attorney James Lackner, head of the RICO Criminal Division, that I was telling for years, just like telling Cole Connolly, but not aware of the incestuous cronyism corruption going on. And James Lackner, who's still there today, the last time that I checked, his brother Marty, before I could talk to him, wound up dead in his closet. Again, suicides and lightning quick cancer. This is Senator John Cornyn and Elizabeth Warren have tried to tackle this for me as quietly as they can without getting their careers assassinated or something planted on them or an accident of suicide or so forth, where he says they owe us. That by picking a venue like Toys R Us, bankruptcy was put in Virginia. By picking a venue instead of where their home offices are domiciled, you're picking a verdict. That's exactly what he says, picking the verdict, right? And this is at UCLA law professor Lynn Lopucky, LOP, right there, up too far down. LOP, can you see it there? Come on, get out from under. Yeah, there, LOPUCKI.com, right? Okay, let me keep going here. Oops, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Let it get back in focus there. There's Colm Connolly. They misspelled it, and we reported it to Twitter thinking it was a phony account. They said no, that the kids did it for dad. That's why the tweets were protected. They originally talked to me, and I got a private message statement from that guy threatening me, but then he locked me out when I tried. See how he says despised Laser Haas a liar? Can't call me a liar unless you know what I'm talking about, right? You know, and here's his wife that he's now divorced from. I didn't know about that, you know, and I don't want to pick on the family member, but she threatened me. Now, see how it says married with 10 kids? He's got 4 kids, 10 kids. I don't know what's going on. And I don't know if the accounts are real. I reported them to Twitter. Okay, there's Paul Traub with Mark Dreyer. Dreier. What happened is Tom Petters got arrested September 2008. The evidence was getting so hot, so they arrested Mark Dreyer the first week of December 2008. Now, Business Week's Matthew Goldstein was going to report on Paul Traub fraud in eToys, KB Toys, Bagman for Mitt Romney, Mark Dreyer partner, Tom Petters Ponzi partner, also a guy you never heard of, got 100 years in prison because they want to keep it quiet because Paul Traub represented Ed Okун's 1031 tax group in a bankruptcy, and Paul Traub's partner, Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox, Michael Fox, represented the trustee creditors. I mean, the hubris of these guys just knows no bounds. Anyway, let's keep going here. This is a easier thing to see. This is Colm Connolly's resume here, and it won't. Why won't it open up bigger for me? I guess that's as big as it goes. Again, Traub with Mark Dreyer, Goldman Sachs. Romney, Toys R Us, Wells Fargo stole 100 million from eToys too. The Ponzi Island down there. Roberta DeAngelis was the general counsel for the U.S. trustee program that kept fighting against me and telling me no wrong. And just like Romney says, their sucker, Goldman Sachs is laughing all the way to the bank. Jeffrey, by the way, didn't kill himself, right? Mitt Romney, Bain Capital, Bernardo O'Reilly, and KKR's got its hands in it too. Scott Hinken was the bondholder of Fir Tree Value Funds at eToys, who gave permission for Paul Traub and Barry Gold to do their slick-ass deal. And then Scott Hinken, when Bain Capital KB bought eToys after they locked me out and reduced the prices, which, by the way, is a crime to this day that's never been addressed and we can put them all in jail for. When I tried to get the judge over the eToys case to look at it, she ordered the clerk not to allow me to put stuff in the record. How many 1 million to 1 shots does a person need before somebody does something? Anyway, so Scott Hinken went with D.E. Shaw that bought eToys from KB bankruptcy, and that went to parent company, and then parent company went bankruptcy, and Scott Hinken went to Toys R Us, with KKR, and now he's got his own company. He's out. Let's look and see if there's anything important here. Oh, maybe we can get a higher picture. No, we can't. I'll get to it soon enough. Colm Connolly's resume there. Let's keep going. Oh, Stephen Piken. This is a good one. I didn't know about this for 19 years. I'm looking for the counterparts of Colm Connolly as U.S. Attorney in Delaware, saying that there were no crimes that he was partners of, that was in the Southern District of New York, and the other person that would be in the SEC. The issue being Colm Connolly was in Delaware, where Mattel and eToys are domiciled foreign corporations, and the Southern District of New York is where the stock exchanges are. So I needed the assistant or U.S. attorney in Delaware, and whoever they worked with that was the SEC guy, and it turns out I was only looking for one person. And notice where he went to. After I start getting confessions, he goes to Sullivan and Cromwell. So again, this is how they hide the quid pro quo. And anyway, was Assistant U.S. Attorney and Chief of the Office of Securities and Commodities Fraud Task Force. So I wasn't looking for two people, I was looking for one. I find this out in 2019, and guess what? I get run off the road 3 times, I get hit in the head, they steal and clone my phone to find out what witnesses and stuff I had buried, and I wind up in the hospital with broken bones. That's the way it goes. Now, let me find... Toys R Us, this is a good story, but they won't talk to me. Blitz, exposing the mystery. They got it all wrong. They have no idea. That's Colm Connolly Moore, bolted from Bain Capital because of accidental fraud and corruption. He's a Bain Goldman Sachs lawyer, partner with M&AT, who's partners in the crime, obstructing justice, retaliating, intimidating, mail fraud, wire fraud, bribery, bankruptcy fraud, you name it. I mean, if Al Capone is protected by Frank Nitti being both the prosecutor and judge in the case, and nobody knows or nobody cares, which is what's going on right now, because I can prove it. Unlike Steven Donziger, who they put in jail when he got a $9 billion award against Chevron, or reality winner, or May Edwards, unlike them, who they put in jail, the last place these guys want to see me is in court of law. So the Third Circuit said the Federal Rules of Appellate Procedure, case 07-2360, unsigned, said that doesn't apply to my case. The Ninth Circuit says all this I'm telling you, and people dead and lawyers confessing the lies. And by the way, Traub, Bonnequist, and Fox is betraying all its creditors. M&AT is betraying me and eToys, its court-approved clients, for the sake of its secret clients, Goldman Sachs, Bain Capital, and what have you, Mattel, and so forth, right? And Romney's saying, thank you, suckers, all the way to the bank. Paul Traub, this is a history about him. I didn't even know about this Alcitron thing. This is what happens. No, look at this. I got to show you all 3 pictures. I finally get unblocked after Jay Clayton and Stephen Piken are gone from the SEC with Gary Gensler in there. And the reason I got unblocked is the Office of Inspector General said the ombudsman of the SEC was burying cases. Now, again, nobody mentions mine because anybody at that level. I've got a girlfriend, retired federal judge Mary F. Walworth, and she says to everybody that if any authority had paid attention to my case, Toys R Us would still be here. And that's true. If I had met the ape nation, who I met here, all right? Now, you see they bring SWAT after me, and I got other pictures. This is grainy hotel footage, forgive us, from the, my being around, okay. Forgive the camera, I'm trying to get that particular thing. Dr. Susan Trimbath pointed out to her followers that SWAT came after me a week after I got the SEC 2 whistleblower case numbers in the eToys and Mattel case. Me off. Back and forth to me, forgive me that. Who watches the watchers? That's the thing. Ignoring your party or, your friends' fraud and corruption is condoning it. Again, that's Traub with Mark Dreyer and Tom Petters. Gensler, I tried to bring attention to him, and unfortunately, Mattel and Goldman Sachs, I'm trying to get rid of David Solomon now for a couple of months. I thought I could get rid of him by the end of the year. He's lost $3 billion. He's done misogyny. 1,400 women are suing Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs had to pay a $12 million settlement to a woman who's coming out with a book on memoirs. One guy had a list, a spreadsheet of women that he rated on the affability chart and said that the only reason you're here and getting promoted is, what's between your legs. Outrageous, the arrogance of these crooks. Again, they're just crooks. All right, there's Romney. He hates the toy industry. He completely gutted the entire toy industry, laughing all the way to the bank, and he's worth way more than $250 million. That's a lie. It's not left me right. It doesn't matter who nominated, who judged. Like, I agree Hillary Clinton should be in jail. There's an ABC TV video out there that nobody will publish because it automatically makes her guilty, where she was at Spago's or somebody's luncheon there in Beverly Hills when she was running for Senate, where she's with Stan Lee and his partner, the guy with the Marvel comics thing, Spider-Man, saying that she doesn't have an email account because of all the investigations. Now, as a prosecutor, you open up with that, and then you take her admittance that when she was Secretary of State, she destroyed 30,000 emails that she said didn't belong. Her stuff didn't belong. They talk about having stuff at your home that's classified documents. Nobody's talking about Hillary Clinton and that stuff, and I guess I talk about it too much. I'll wind up number 30 on their dead list so they can make Romney and Trump happy and Goldman Sachs happy. Yeah, there's David Solomon. I'm wiping the smile off his face. He's also laid off thousands, cuts bonuses in half. The investors weren't happy with the meeting he had the other day. But in talking to him and talking to David Lauer, who had an open Q&A with Gary Gensler about Thomas Lee Partners, Bain Capital, Goldman Sachs, M&AT, the Mattel and eToys fraud, it's very coincidental that Thomas Lee winds up suiciding that day, especially the fact that Romney's on the record that day saying to the press that he's keeping his options over about what he's going to announce he's going to run for, watching both the Senate and the presidential race, and he doesn't know why anybody just wants to stay in the Senate. The truth is he can't run as long as I'm breathing. He has to shut me up. I know that, and I've been trying to get my affairs in order. Again, this shows where I sued Trump, and I'll show you the FDEC and everything. You see that it was clocked in on May 9th. But if you pay attention right here, they admit they received it on March 22nd. Now, the thing is, Jay Clayton got approved by 2 cloture votes on May 3rd, 2017. And Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson signed the case closed on May 5th before it was ever even clocked in the record, right? And I didn't get to see her order about that until just a few months ago. Okay, let's keep going. What is this here? Yeah, Goldman Sachs sins that destroyed eToys. Y'all should take a screenshot of this. The basic things: retaliation, intimidation, helping destroy the entire industry. This is the thing. Madoff, 2 sons that ran to tell on dad are dead. One of them by suicide. So we can't ask him any questions. Madoff himself is dead, and I think it's awful convenient that Madoff's sister and her husband are dead when this Netflix series comes out, right? It's just no end to this all. This shows, Goldman Sachs and everybody else is starting to pay attention to my websites where they stayed away. This is amazing. I was amazed that this guy started looking at my LinkedIn and things. This is a partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, right? They're parties in a fraud. And it's possible, ladies and gentlemen, that one part of Sullivan and Cromwell and one part of M&AT, though M&AT is a far smaller firm, only 30, 40 lawyers and stuff, and half of them are involved. It's possible that Sullivan and Cromwell didn't know all this stuff, just happy for Jay Clayton and Stephen Piken to get in there, but they're not doing anything about it. Stephen Piken is still there. Now, let me give you this. This is Christine Michelle Chadwick. That's my suicide months before Thomas Lee committed suicide, who she was with me and Mary Elizabeth Bullock, Judge Bullock. We all handle sexual abuse people that are suicidal, to prevent them from doing suicide. And Christine Michelle Chadwick was a pro. You pay attention. She's open source intelligence, international operative, honorary ambassador to the International Senatus Consortium to stop global restop, military liaison. A very sharp lady, flew out here, hugged me, wanted to do everything for me. I was with her. I helped a Goldman Sachs guy that they've been trying to kill that we got in Poland. I got accident injury money, and I donated so she could send money and try to feed him. He was a billionaire. They destroy him. They won't let him get out there again, quashing anything that points to the truth. This is a good title for everybody. Now, this is about what did the money man know in the Tom Petters Ponzi case. And in the Tom Petters Ponzi case, controlled by Paul Traub, Mitt Romney, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Bain Capital's lawyer that's also a lawyer at Mattel, and partners with Mark Dreyer in the Tom Petters Ponzi, they seized Polaroid, but wouldn't let anybody outbid Traub's guys for $83 million when it had $2 billion in assets. They blocked everybody, including Lynn Tilton, and when she tried to complain about it, they went out to destroy her. That's what they do. You destroy and assail the messenger of truth to kill the bigger message they don't want known. But what this story tells, the earth-shaking news that this tells, and let me find it here. Is that it? No. Trump faces New York probes, mob lawyer and Giuliani protege. This is a cute story. Mark McCasey is the son of former U.S. Attorney General after Gonzalez. We made him quit. He fired 8 U.S. attorneys that wouldn't prosecute Democrats just because they were Democrats. Now, New Jersey U.S. Attorney Chris Christie did that. He took a felony guy, gave him millions of dollars in lavish lifestyle and stuff, $50,000 a month, and let him go around and bribe people, and they prosecuted him before they ever did any crime. And Chris Christie also gave former United States Attorney General John Ashcroft, who wrote a statement that tried to help me, that the number one problem with corruption in the United States is corrupt federal judges colluding with high-ranking members in the Department of Justice. That they didn't use the term whistleblower because that wasn't a thing at the time in 2005, but then he resigned right after that when he gets the $50 million no-bid deferred prosecution agreement, with part of that going to Rachel Poulos, the U.S. Attorney in Minnesota, over James Lackner, the brother of Marty Lackner, partner of the Tom Petters Ponzi, and Deborah Yang in Los Angeles. And Deborah Yang, gets part of it. They become part of Ashcroft's $50 million bid, and the cases go away. Mark McCasey is the son of Mike McCasey, and when I tried to help a lawyer, Don Lewis, who they were falsely accusing, and Mark McCasey was at Pierce Bainbridge, which was also Rittenhouse's lawyer, Micah Avenatti, Rudy Giuliani, and that's why somebody affiliated with him tried to kill me. They shot the wrong guy at the hotel here, and then SWAT came after me trying to scare me off. Well, again, here's another thing nobody pays attention to. Joe Biden he was a neighbor of sorts of mine in Rehoboth, Dewey Beach, Delaware. I actually threatened the senator that you're either letting these guys do these crimes with your permission or not. If you're letting them do it with you, you know me, Joe. I don't let the tiger tail go, and that's another story altogether. You're my enemy now. If you're letting them do it without your permission, you don't immediately do something. You're my enemy tomorrow. And what Joe Biden did, and I believe that's how he became president of the United States, just look at the facts, one after the other. Everything I'm telling you is true. I've testified to it under penalty of perjury. I'm a felon. What was vandalism? I didn't steal anything. I didn't beat anybody up or anything. I got drugged when I was a teenager trying to chase a girl, and karate kicked the door in, threw the court files all over the place, and they were mad at me. So they gave me 18 months and called it B&E. Technically it was B&E, but I should have gotten probation. And a guy that had sympathy for me helped turn my life around. The guy that wanted me not to go to prison and said, instead of spending 3 years there, come down and we'll get you immediate release. They got me immediate release. They stuck me back in again because nobody took me to a probation officer. So when I went to Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, and I stepped across the state line to go to the other side, to get money that had fallen off the carnival ride, and the carnival I was looking, they arrested me for going out of state without permission. Anyway, Mark McCasey is the son of U.S. Attorney General Michael McCasey, and a judge that I have an acquaintance with and offered to meet with me, but I decided not to because they destroyed him. Judge Richard B. Sanders, a Supreme Court justice in Washington State, a diehard Republican, paid a Federalist dinner. McCasey's there leaving saying nobody should prosecute or investigate Bush. Everything he did was legal. And Judge McCasey's an honorable man. And he parked up and said, "Tyrant, tyrant." And everybody booed him. The sergeant at arms sat him down. Attorney General Mike McCasey, former federal judge on his own, felt encouraged and started down the same pathway. And the judge, Richard B. Sanders, bless him, couldn't take it. Steps up, "Tyrant, tyrant, tyrant." Everybody boos him. The sergeant of arms takes him out of the $2,500 dinner, and McCasey collapses at the podium and goes to the hospital. And the Judge Richard Sanders becomes famous. I start getting people to donate to Richard Sanders, saying this is a guy that's honest enough that we can get him to break the stories about the Tom Petters Ponzi and everything else that's going on. Well, they assassinated his campaign, and he winds up. That's Mark McCasey right there. I don't know who the other is, but Rudy Giuliani got sworn in by Judge McCasey before he became the Attorney General. Giuliani and this is Greg Werkheiser. He was my attorney at M&AT. He clerked for Honorable Judge Roth, who another judge that's done stuff that's specious in my case, Kate Eddie Jordan, he told all the attorneys in October 16, 2006, your lives are on the line. We had it recorded. It's redacted. Robert Alber, an eToys shareholder, his wife and I were there. We heard it. Our tongues dropped to the floor in Kingman, Arizona, which is where they tried to assassinate Alber, and Alber assassinated Michael Says, not assassinated, but saved his life by killing Michael Sazoff. But you'll see right there that Greg Werkheiser was partner there 22 years. He left when all the stories started coming out in 2019, 2020, and he went to Benench Law, and he's still there, and I've tried to harass them to get him out. Evidently, they're not going to let him do it. But Werkheiser's wife, Rachel, was clerking for the chief bankruptcy judge. So I called them up and told them, you're out of your mind. She immediately lost her job, and head bankruptcy judge Sansi quit. That's what they do when it's too hot in the kitchen. That's the same story I looked at. What's up here? Oh, Elliot Spitzer, he's part of it too. He couldn't prosecute my case when he got his landslide $400 million settlement with Merrill Lynch and all the other people for the .com fraud. Because I'd already sued Goldman Sachs in New York Supreme Court, 601-805/2002. So he couldn't touch that case. What he did, though, is he promoted the judge over the eToys versus Goldman Sachs case, Moskowitz, over to the New York Supreme Court of Appeals. And she told Traub, don't you try your lies in my court that you did there. Well, later on, when Mark Dreyer goes to jail and Traub's caught trying to keep an escrow account, she's one of the 5-judge panel that rules he did no wrong. I pointed that out. She quit too. And Spitzer went to jail, messing with hookers at $5,000 a pop. And his right-hand man, Tom McCarran, quit when he wanted to do my case. And Andy Lauren wound up telling me there was no case with the SEC, Susan Cheryl Bidds, and Gordon Robinson, the bankruptcy fraud task force of the SEC. Yes, that was a division at the time. They all tell me there's no case. Well, Andrew Lauren is part of Pierce Brainbridge, right? I mean, I didn't know. Now I research it all the time. Now look, Mattel, Financial Conduct Authority, FINRA, they're all begging LinkedIn to shut me down, who fortunately somebody there is being decent and hasn't done it yet. That's not saying they won't. But this is right before and during Tom Lee suicide. Thomas Lee Partners, the billionaire that they said suicide himself. This is the women at Goldman Sachs that were assaulted and arrested. You see the date on it. That's still ongoing. These are the people I told you about that are dead, and it's a dozen more. This is my sweetie, Judge Mary Elizabeth Bullock. We met with Christine Michelle Chadwick, where we were all sexual abused people when we were young. And Judge Bullock, just like I turned myself around and didn't go back to organized crime, she turned herself around from a sex slave by her own dad and became a lawyer, a judge, and a law professor. And they won't let her bring her bar card out of retirement when she's deathly ill, because by California law, even with my felony record, I can practice under her and go after these guys, M&AT, Paul Traub, I can sue them in court. This is the thing that M&AT did. Look at that. Motion of the debtor to destroy books and records. Now, Sullivan and Cromwell's lawyer, Jeremy Bates, gave that to me. Then they let him go. When Etoy sued Goldman Sachs to make the case go away, they took Jeremy Bates, an environmental specialist lawyer, and put him on the case. And he immediately tried to impress his bosses on what he could do. Reaches out to me and hands me this stuff, and I had never seen it before, but it explains what was happening to all my evidence. So when people say, well, prove that you signed anything ruling Etoy's, prove, that you had Etoy's cards, they destroyed it all from the very beginning. Oh, this is it. What did the money man know? It's a Minnesota Freedom of the Press statement. The Bell case was a feeder fund to Tom Petter's Pony. Marty Lackner wound up found dead, right, of a suicide, okay? A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office said Jim Lackner, his brother, never worked on the Petters or Bell cases. Frank Nitti says Al Capone didn't do nothing. Al Capone, Mitt Romney, says he was retroactively retired from organized crime. And Frank Nitti, Al Capone, and all their crony corrupts said they never do nothing. We invested ourselves and we're clean. It's just a joke and a half. Oh, that's the thing we already looked at. Let's keep going here. Again, how many 1,000,000-to-1 shots? This is, again, Christine Michelle Chadwick LinkedIn stuff. It's still up there. This is what the government does with me, protecting the crap out of me, as a whistleblower. Mattel's in a panic, by the way. They're at my websites, and probably once this gets published, they'll stop it. But Mattel's been trying to sell themselves a merge with Hasbro or somebody else to make all this go away. Because what they do is, Hutchins Wheeler was with Paul Traub forming asset disposition advisors with Nancy A. Valente as their registered agent for creating asset disposition advisors at Barry Gold and Paul Traub. That's how I proved that they were lying in our case, that they didn't know each other when they were in Sears Home Life and Bonus Stores as partners and punished for not disclosing their conflict of interest or trying to benefit from the conflict of interest. So Nancy Valente also handled Johnson & Johnson's buying of eToys stuff, Baby Center, before eToys filed bankruptcy. Now it's rescindable, but again, Scott Hinken of Fir Tree Value Fund, M&AT, Goldman Sachs, Bain Capital, and Colm Connolly said it's all okay. We agreed we could steal and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So Mattel is panicking, and I got witnesses there that they're threatening, and I'm hoping that we are able to protect. because again, Mattel could go away and everything they own, like Barbie doll and Hot Wheels and all that, could be wound up, sold to something else. This is my sweet friend Christine Michelle Chadwick that they suicided last year. Let's see what else is here. This is who I'm suggesting. Again, anybody else, and he keeps trying to say, well, it was the pandemic, the plandemic, whatever you want to call it. David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, who I wrote a letter to, and he got it the day he got in office. The very next day, his general counsel, Gregory Palm, quits. And by the way, sidebar, winds up going around giving credibility to FTX guy Sam. The same way that Tim Lizer for Goldman Sachs gave credibility to the Malaysia 1MDB. And everybody's reporting today that there's another few $1 billion in assets they can't find a ledger to or anything. But I'm suggesting that this lady, and I guess I tilted my